Hi, this is Don Joseph, and I'm in the Key Peninsula Historical Museum office, and I'm talking to Colleen Slater. And Colleen is going to talk to us about her days here on the Key Peninsula, and so we'll start right out. Colleen, you want to tell us about your earliest days that you recall on the Key Peninsula?
My earliest remembrance is I was about 3, and we lived on the bay in a little house with a big picture window and a window seat. At least it was big to me then. And there was the thunder and lightning storm. And it was probably the most or the worst or the hardest or whatever that I'd ever experienced. And I was scared. All that noise and the flashing lights. And my dad took me over to the window seat, sat me on his lap, and told me all the noise was coming from the little men playing balls upstairs. He was from Scotland, and so that was his story. And that when they made a strike, that's when the flashing light came. And it was such a neat story that I was never afraid after that of lightning and thunder.
Very good, very good. Now, when did your parents come here to the Key Peninsula?
My mother came from Canada about 3 months old, and that was 1911, because her family came down because her grandparents had come down. And my father came in 1934 because he was in New York City, met a street preacher who told him if he ever got to Washington State to find out where Vaughan was, to go to Vaughan and knock on his cousin's door. And the cousin was Glenn Howe. So he did.
Oh, very good, very good. What are your earliest memories about playing as a infant before you started attending school? Who might have been some of your friends?
Well, there were 5 of us kids. I was the second one, so we always had playmates. And there weren't any really close neighbors that had children. And we did a lot of self-entertainment, so to speak. And one of the things we liked to do was to go out in the summer, on an early summer day, and play with little trucks and things under the pine tree. We created roads, and I don't recall what else, but there was a favorite car, which was a yellow convertible little toy car. So the first one up and out always got that car. And I got it quite often because I'd wake up, oh yes, time to get up and go. And one other thing I do recall, my mother had I think a tea box of paper dolls, things she had cut from magazines when she was growing up, and probably her sisters had started it. And so my first paper dolls were actually her paper dolls. But later on, we had our own paper dolls, my sister 2 years younger and I, and we created many, many outfits for them.
Okay, can you share with us a little bit about the house you lived in, or the houses that you lived in here on Vaughan Bay or on the Key Peninsula?
Okay, I am told that we lived in the house right there on the water across from the store that was first Vance Likes and then his partner, but I don't remember that one. The first house I do remember is the one with the lightning story, and that was just up a couple houses from the store. And the road at that time ran above the bay and below the houses. So it was quite handy a place. And one thing I do remember about that house is that my brother Terry had a dog, got a dog. And Daddy brought him home and gave him to Terry, and Daddy said, okay, you name the dog, Terry, it's yours. And he thought for a bit, and he said, 1680. Is that the dog's name? Yep, that's the dog's name. Why is that a good name for a dog? Just is. So that dog was 1680.
That's good.
And the other house that I was older, I think it was probably when I was 5, was Ella Davidson's house, way out on the road. And the main thing I remember about it is there was a fish pond kind of behind the house. And my brother Terry, we had goldfish in there, and my brother Terry liked to get the goldfish out and put them in the rain barrel that stood at the corner of the house so that he could watch them better. And sometimes he forgot to put them back. But anyway, we'd lie on our tummies and watch the goldfish in the pond. And it had a veranda. Seems to me it went all around the house, but I don't know for sure if it did. And rows of strawberries by the driveway. And that house is basically right across the bay from where we live now. So
Oh, okay.
it was next to a little bridge. There's a
Sure.
well, anyway, it was a short bridge, but the cars used it because that's where the road was. And sometimes we could go over there with my dad and look down. And one day we went over and looked down, and there was a dead deer down below, which was very sad to see, but that was one of the stories that I recall.
Do you remember any traffic issues
No.
at that point? You mentioned the car.
Well, we had a car. I think the only one I really remember is a pickup, but with 5 kids, and I guess we all squeezed into it. On good days, the older kids, Terry and myself and sometimes Pat, rode in the back. And we lived for a while down at Delano Beach, where my grandfather was, I think he was caretaker, but anyway, he worked there and lived there. And we lived there a very short time, but the only real memory I have of that time is we were coming home from church at Vaughan, and it was a beautiful day, and Pat and I had new hats with, seems to me it was flowers, but a ribbon,
Easter
straw
time.
hats. Probably we got them for Easter, so it was after Easter. And the wind came along and blew our hats off. I mean, maybe hung on for a while, but no wind, you don't hang on. And they landed in a field full of daisies. I just remember the white daisies. And we pounded on the window, and finally Daddy stopped, and we told him, well, we need to get home and get the baby fed, and then I'll come back and look.
Mhm.
So he went back, and he said he looked in every field that had daisies in it, and he never found the hats. And we cried because we knew we couldn't get any more. But then he told us that perhaps some little people would find the hats and make houses in them. So that was our story. Okay, we lost our hats to the little people.
Okay, well, this is all before you started school.
Right.
Do you recall what Key Center looked like before you even started going to school?
Not really. I don't remember, we shopped at the Vaughn store, and so we didn't have any real need.
Okay.
If we came to Key Center, it was to see Olson's,
Uh-huh.
and we just stayed there. There was plenty to do there.
Yeah, so most of your needs were met right there at the
Right,
Vaughn's
right.
store. Okay, very good. Can you share with us about what it was like when you first went to school in the very first grade?
Okay, I went to school first grade in Darrington, where my dad worked for Davidson Logging Company. And I have a picture of myself out in the front lawn just before we went to school. And Terry, of course, had started here at Vaughan, and then we left in 1942 in April, I think it was. And so I started in Darrington, and I thought it was a really long way until we, a few years ago, went up at 2 blocks maybe. But Terry's best friend and his twin brothers, who were in my class, came by the house, and we walked with them to school. And my girlfriend, who lived right across the street, and her name was Barbara Bullen, went with us. And my story with her was, one of these days we'd grow up and I would marry one of those twins, Raymond and Ronald. But I couldn't decide which one. And so I only went through first grade and half of second there. And I do remember having a hearing test in school. That's about the only thing I recall, except that the teacher was Miss Blake, who was, I think, the doctor's sister. She was elderly, but she was very nice.
When eventually did you start attending school out here on the Key Peninsula?
We came back to Vaughan in 1944, and I was in second grade. We had been a brief time in Agate, and I went to school there for about 4 weeks. And in that school, one thing that I vividly remember is that we lined up to go outside. We went outside, and the teacher was having the kids whistle. Of course, all the boys could whistle, and she had us line up however. And Susie was right in front of me. There were 4 of us in second grade. Susie and Jimmy and a boy that came and stayed 2 weeks, and I was there about 2 months. But Susie was just ahead of me, and she couldn't whistle. And I couldn't whistle either, and I knew it, and I was going to be next. So Susie tried, and she couldn't whistle, and the kids all started teasing, "Susie's lost her whistle, Susie's lost her whistle." And the bell rang, and I was never so thankful to have the bell ring. And then we came down here and went to Vaughan Grade School, which was over across the field. I don't know if you were around soon enough to know that, but it was 2-story. And I was in second grade downstairs, but I was a good reader, and so I got to go upstairs to 3rd grade for reading class. And my brother was in 3rd grade, so it may have been a little embarrassment for him, but I loved it.
So how many years did you go to school out here on the Key Peninsula?
8th grade, right in that school.
Okay.
And then Peninsula.
Okay.
And we would gather we had to ride the bus to Peninsula. We walked to Vaughan.
At the Vaughan School, how many grades did they have in the classrooms?
First and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth.
So basically it was 2 grades in each classroom.
2 grades,
that's
and
cool.
no kindergarten yet, of
Okay,
course.
okay,
And the high school was here.
sure. Okay. And that would be here in the Civic Center as we're
Right.
sitting, that was the high school.
Right.
So can you share with us what it was like when you went on to high school?
Well, we went on the bus, of course, with friends from here because the bus came here, and I was shy, very shy, but I really liked school, and I liked most of the teachers and got along very well. And the high point of my high school career, so to speak, I got to be editor of the annual my senior year.